Alexis here, creator of Jam with Latin, and today I'm introducing something new, a vocabulary series just on Latin vocabulary words, and these words are from my Jam with Latin workbook. Now, the Jam with Latin workbook can be used throughout the summer to introduce Latin or as a review. If you need a full Latin course, it would be best to join one of my classes at jamwithlatin.com. Now, let's get into the basic grammar of Latin vocabulary. Before we get started on our vocabulary, there's some rules I'd like you to know. The first one is there are two forms of Latin, the way people speak Latin or read Latin, and the first one is called the classical pronunciation. And classical pronunciation was during the time of Caesar Augustus and the Roman Empire. And that is the one that Jam with Latin chooses to use in our pronunciation. The second one is called ecclesiastic Latin, and the ecclesiastic Latin rose up during the Middle Ages with the Roman Catholic Church. But they actually still use it today in their writings, in their songs, and their prayers. So it's not a dead language. The other thing we need to keep in mind is that you and me, we are Americans, and we have an American accent, and you will never sound exactly like the classical pronunciation or the ecclesiastic pronunciation, and that's okay. Try your best because we're here to read our words so that we can see patterns, and by saying the words, we can memorize them. So do your best, listen to how I say it, and memorize the words I give you. Before we get to our actual vocabulary, I want to talk about Latin nouns. And Latin nouns are just like English nouns. They name person, place, thing, or ideas. And they change their spelling according to how they are used in a sentence. And when a Latin noun changes its spelling, it is called the cases. Now, we might have heard the case song before: nominative, subject, genitive, possessive, dative, indirect object, accusative, direct object, and ablative, object of the preposition. But did you know what that means? Well, in Latin, it means that every time a noun changes its job within a sentence, you're going to change the spelling. Now, here in my sentences, I'm going to use one noun, my friend Sarah here, and she is just going to change her position in the sentence so that we can see how these cases work. All right, so nominative equals subject. That means when you have a subject of a sentence, in Latin, you're labeling it nominative. Sarah is going to be the subject. So Sarah went to the park. Who went to the park? Sarah did. She's the subject of the sentence. Then she's going to own something. So genitive possessive means you own something. Sarah's dog. Whose dog? Sarah's dog. Now in Latin, you can take the same exact word and translate it to the dog of Sarah, and both mean she owns it. Then we have dative, which is indirect object, and that's when you give something to or for somebody else. And in Latin, the translation, the Latin word, will not have to or for in it, but your English word will. So, I gave to Sarah the dog. Then we have accusative, which is direct object, directly receiving the action from the verb. The dog loves Sarah. See? She got the direct action, the love from the dog. And then the final one is ablative, object of the preposition. And Mom was waiting for the dog, for Sarah and the dog. Now they're both prepositions there. Finally, we have a vocative word, which is a noun of direct address. And this is not learned until later on in your textbooks. So we are not going to address that in our review series, okay? Okay, so I'm talking about the first declension today, and the first declension is feminine, and feminine things remind me of flowers. And so we have some weird flowers here, right? They still have the roots on them because I want to show you a construction method, some way we can think about building our Latin nouns. So every time I think of a Latin noun, I think that it has parts, and those parts come together to make a whole, just like your plant here. So the endings of a noun can be your roots. They will never change for that declension. So think of one declension, one plant, same roots. But as you go up the stem, you can have different leaves and different stalks going off that main stem, and those are all very different. And those are going to be the stem of our noun. The roots are going to be our endings. You put them together and we get a complete noun. Now, let's talk about the endings. These are first declension feminine endings. We're going to add them to our stem in a minute. And so my chart is pink to remind me it is feminine. The first nominative subject is a, like Alexis. Genitive is I. A-E together makes I. Dative is I. Accusative is am, am. And then oblative is a macron, which makes the macron makes it long, and that macron will tell us it's like father. So I always have to open my mouth and remember I'm saying like father. You see my eyes pop out there. All right, now those were the singular. So if I'm talking about one girl, it would be up there in the singular. If I was talking about many girls, it's going to be here in the bottom. So it's I again, then aurum, is. So I, long I, macron, is, as, long A again, and is. Those are our endings that we're going to add to our stem right now. Finally, today I am going to build our nouns. We're going to take our stem and we're going to take our endings and we're going to create a complete plant form. So we are talking about first declension feminine nouns, so they're on pink cards. On our dictionary page, they will have nominative subject spelling and genitive possessive spelling. This shows us its first declension because first declension A and I endings, and it also shows us our stem by covering the genitive singular ending. So ter is our stem. Ter is translated to earth or land, and we have earth or land in the singular and earth or land in the plural. So every declension has 5 singular and 5 plural. So nominative subject terra, genitive terrae, dative terrae, accusative terram, and ablative terra. Now we're going to do it fast, okay? So we have terrae, terrarum, terris, terras, teddies, earth or land. The next word is porta, portae, nominative subject, genitive possessive, cover the ending, and we get port. Now, unfortunately, this word does not translate to port. It translates to gate, which is why it's important to have your flashcards made so you can tell the difference between your words. Again, our singular, porta, portae, portae, portam, porta. Plural, portae, portarum, portis, portas, portis. Yes! Now is a word you know, Marīa, Marīae. Yes, it is Mary when I cover the genitive ending. Mary is the stem. And yes, it translates to Mary. But you can see I only did the singular because I don't usually know a room of 100 Marys all at once. I just did the endings in case I do. So it's Marīa, Marīae, Marīae, Marīam, Marīa. Mary. Okay, our last first declension feminine noun is fīlia, fīliae. You cover the genitive ending and it's F, I, macron, L, I. That is your stem. Fīlie. Fīlie translates to daughter. And you can have daughters in the singular and daughters in the plural. Fīlia, fīliae, fīliae, fīliam, fīlia, fīliae, fīliarum, fīliis, fīlias, fīlis. Our last word is not feminine, but it does still use the first declension endings. And the word is nauta, nautae. I know it uses the first declension endings because the A and AE are exactly the same as all the other words I gave you. Those roots, they don't change. But the stems, they change. And the reason is that this word translates to sailor. And sailor is a job a man would have had in ancient Rome. And anything that a man would have done in ancient Rome is usually classified as masculine. Okay? So our singular and then our plural. Nauta, nautae, nautae, nautam, nauta, nautae, nautarum, nautis, nautas, nautis. So the only thing different is the color of the card. Everything else is exactly the same. So that's it for today. Please join video number 2 where we'll learn some more, and like and subscribe and share with your friends.